Okay everybody, in this episode I'm going to be showing you guys how to do a kind of an efficient way of doing editing for interviews and making it look pretty good, making it look professional. We've got two different versions I'm going to be showing here. First version I'm going to be showing you is how to do just a single interview, a little segment for anything like an industrial or a documentary, and then we'll get into multi interviews as well. So multiple interviews in one timeline and kind of show you a quick efficient way of getting that edited. So here I'm going to start going through the single interview here. We got a single interview just talking about some guy investing in Walmart, and I've got some B-roll here. So and the way these interviews are set up here is you've got somebody asking the questions and then you've got him responding, and you can actually see, and there's not a mic on the person asking the questions. So these are kind of standalone answers here that it's meant to, this guy's going to be telling the entire story, and the person asking the question won't be. So no narration on this, it's just one person telling the story here. So in this instance here, I'm going to look at the waveforms. And if you look at the waveforms, you'll see that they're kind of small, then they get big. And these are the interviewer asking the questions, and then this is the interviewee responding here. So first of all, I'm just going to kind of go through and cut out all those questions in this instance. This is him, this guy, telling us his name, his title, and how to spell his name.
My name is Nicholas D.
So this stuff we're not going to be keeping here, and he tells us how to spell the name. So I'm going to skip through that. Get right here, and we're going to cut all this off right here. So first of all, we're just going to clean up this timeline to have a nice little edit here. I'm going to go Q and delete that. Now a recommendation here is, look at this, we've got an answer, kind of a long answer, and then more questioning. An answer, and then more questioning. So I'm going to go down to this waveform here and just get rid of the questions. We don't need to hear them right now. So I'm going to do Control K to cut. So I'm going to keep all this right here. I'm going to move down to where his new interview starts right there. And then I'm going to hit Q, and Q will cut and delete everything to the left here, and ripple delete, Q. W does it to the right, Q does it to the left. So now I'm going to go to the end of this interview, same thing, Control K, go to the end of this one, and Q, and eliminate all the questioning. Now let's move to the end and just see if there's anything, what he says at the end, see if we can cut off anything at the end.
Definitely sit on Walmart for the rest of my life.
So there we go, that's the end, and now I can hit W and delete this to the right. Hit slash above the enter key and show my entire timeline. So there we've cut out all the questions and we're just left with the answers here. And this is just for a single interview, and like I said, I'm going to go into the multiple interview lesson out right after this one here. So I'm going to hit home, go to the beginning, and now we're going to go through and start cutting out. The idea with interviews is cutting out all the redundancies and all the unnecessary items. Say we want to get this down, our producer said that we had to get this interview down to like 1.5 minutes, so we have to cut out about 1 minute's worth of time. So we're going to go through and try to find those redundancies. Let's listen to what he says here.
Well, I began investing in Walmart when I got a brief holdup with the 401k plans being transferred over to a stock ends that I couldn't do anything with. So what I did is I just kept it where it was at in its IRA form, and I got a few calls from some of my investors, some of my other entrepreneur friends, and a lot of people were looking at the Walmart stock, being that it's only at $61. And a lot of the top industry players are 100, 150, even 200, like being Volkswagen, which had dropped from 200.
Okay, so right here at the end it kind of shifts gears and starts talking about Volkswagen, comparing the Walmart stock to Volkswagen, and I can probably cut some of this stuff out.
Even 200, like being Volkswagen, 100, and a lot of the top industry players are 100, 150.
So we can probably cut off a lot of this afterwards. Let's cut there. I'm going to hit Control K and do a cut.
Even 200, like being Volkswagen, which had dropped from 200 all the way down to 100 now. So there's been a lot of sways.
So we're going to leave in this section where he says there's been a lot of sways. I'm going to hit Q and eliminate this stuff about the Volkswagen right there, kind of some unnecessary information. So cut that off. And now we're down to 221. So you're going to do this and you're going to kind of go through and do a lot of edit and edit out. Even though these are going to be jump cuts, let's play through this and watch. You're going to see a jump
150.
cut.
There's been a lot.
Right there's a jump cut, and that's fine. Right now we're just getting rid of the redundancies, and we're going to cover a lot of this with B-roll.
A lot of sways, and with them being the #1 marketable grocery store and or chain store, being at $61, it was a no-brainer.
So let's listen to this next section here and see if there's anything we can eliminate.
I've only been invested in Walmart. I actually got my notice statement last month.
So that little section right there at the beginning, he kind of says, I've only been with Walmart, and then he changes his mind and starts talking about something else. We can get rid of a portion of this here.
I've only been invested in Walmart. I actually got my note.
So we're gonna start with where he says, I actually got my, hit Q.
I actually got my notice statement last month. So I own now 102 stocks.
So we cut out that little redundancy there. We've shaved off another 4 seconds there. So I'm going to play through the rest of this and see if there's any more of those redundancies and see if I can kind of get more things that are, it's just really kind of this intuitive sort of thing that you just go through and listen to it and see what you can cut out and get this cut down. Be a little bit aggressive with cutting some things out that you don't need until you get this cut down, and then we're going to show you this. So I'm going to go through and do the rest of that, then I'm going to go back and show you the next step.
My notice statement last month. So I own now 102 stocks of Walmart at 61.22, and hopefully what I'm going to be waiting for, what I'm waiting for is the Volkswagen stock.
See, here's another example.
And hopefully what I'm going to be waiting for, what I'm waiting for.
So right there, he kind of corrects himself. So this little section of audio right there can come out. Cut.
And hopefully what I'm going to be waiting for.
Stop. Q, and eliminate the rest of that section there.
What I'm waiting for is the Volkswagen stop to hit rock bottom since they.
And let me show you another different way of extracting one of these differences. This is one way, doing the Control K and Q or W to get rid of a section, but there's also the lift and extract, which is kind of helpful as well. It's these little keys right up here, lift and extract, and your shortcuts are your semicolon and your parenthesis key. They're right next to each other for lift and extract as your shortcut. So what we can do here is I can put an in point and out point on my timeline. I want to eliminate this little section because listen to this.
And hopefully what I'm going to be waiting for, what I'm waiting for.
So he says what I'm waiting for, what I'm waiting for. He says that twice, so I can take out this little chunk of audio right here. So I'm going to get it right here, put an in point, play through it.
And hopefully what I'm going to be waiting for.
Right there, I need to eliminate that portion of audio, out point, and now I can hit lift. So what that does is just removes that section out of there, but it leaves this gap. Extract is a little bit different. Extract actually pulls it out and does a ripple delete. If you hit extract, it's going to lift it out of there and also fill the gap. So that's kind of a quick way of doing it. If you know where you got an in point, you can put an in point, out point. So I'll be doing kind of a combination of either the cut combined with the Q and W, or do an in point, out point, and extract.
What I'm waiting for is the Volkswagen stop to.
Okay. So I've gone through and cut out a few other little items that seem to be kind of those redundancies, and I've got it down to about 1:46, and we're trying to get this down to 1.5 for the producer. So I want to still cut this down a little bit, and now what I can do though is I can go through and start doing some more aggressive cleanup on this thing. We've cut out all the kind of the main narrative parts that don't need to be in there, but now we're going to start cleaning up and making this sound a little bit more. Well, let's play this and listen.
Well, I began investing in Walmart when I got a brief.
Notice all the ums and ahs right here. This is very typical for most interviews. You'll have kind of the ums and ahs while people are thinking, and a lot of that stuff can be cut out. Now what I'm going to be doing here at the beginning is we're going to have some B-roll over the top of this, so that will hide a lot of those cuts. We just want the audio to sound really good, and then I'm going to cut back to him and show his face for maybe about 10 seconds, and then we'll cut back to B-roll. So if we go to the beginning of this and we start playing, let's find out what we can start cutting out here.
Well,
He says, well, that does not need to be there.
Well,
and I can get right in between here. This is the well, and then he says I right there. So I can actually hit Q and cut off the well. Let's listen to this.
I began investing in Walmart.
There we go. And even some of these pauses, when he's thinking, we can kind of pull these together because this is going to be covered with B-roll. So I'm going to hit in point, and he says out point. I'm going to move that in point in where that waveform kind of drops off there, in point right there. And we're going to extract this. I'm going to hit actually my shortcut for it, which is the semicolon colon key, and takes that. There's a pause there. I'm going to cut it, or we'll put in point. So out point, and extract.
Got a brief.
And I'm going to keep doing this, cleaning up.
Hold up.
The ums and ahs and taking out some of these pauses.
Hold up.
And let's listen to what we have now. So let's go to the beginning. I took out all those ums and ahs. Let's go to the beginning and play through this and just listen to it. Ignore the picture because you're going to be getting all these jump cuts, but listen to the audio.
I began investing in Walmart when I got a brief holdup with the 401k.
And that's working right there. So I'm just going to keep doing this and cleaning up these ums and ahs. And you can usually just look where these waveforms kind of come down, and you try to get these in and out points right where they hit the bottom here, so you don't notice the transition. Hit the extract key.
The 401k plans being
and at this point
transferred over to a stock ends that I couldn't do anything with. So what I did is,
so I'm going to plan to kind of have B-roll over this whole segment until I reach this point, and then we're going to come back to the video and show his visual, and then I'm going to stay on this. So I'm going to leave this section here kind of alone because I don't want any jump cuts on that, but I'm going to clean up the rest of this section right here.
401k plans being transferred.
And right there I hit a Control K and Q, or you can do the in-point, out-point, extract. In-point, out-point, extract.
Over.
And right here I'm going to hit Q. So it just depends on what your style is, what you like.
To a stock ends that I couldn't do anything with. So what I did is I just kept it where it was at in its IRA form. And
see, and even though he says in here, I'm going to leave that one in because I want to cut back to his video and leave this on screen. I just want to take out a lot of those ums and ahs, but once in a while, like when we cut back to his visual, I'm going to leave one in. This is a good, nice, kind of cogent statement right there that would do well showing the actual interview and then cutting back to B-roll later on. So that is the next step. I'm going to go through and I'm going to cut out all the ums and ahs and pauses and redundancies, and I'm going to leave a little section in every now and then that we can cut back to. And then then we'll come back and I'll go on to the next part. Sorry, before I go back, I want to show another example. Instead of the ums and ahs, in addition to the ums and ahs, I want to get rid of a couple of the times he repeats himself. And here's one example where he repeats himself.
And I got a few calls from some of my investors.
He says some of my investors. So right here is a little section.
Calls from some.
So I'm going to take out this some of my and use the some of my down here where he starts when he corrects himself. So I'm going to get right where I hear the S. Right there I can hear the S starting. So I'm going to hit in point.
Some of my
and go down to the S here, out point, and hit an extract. And let's listen to that.
Calls from some of my investors.
And that's perfect. If you're a little bit off, you can actually do what's called a ripple edit. You can hit your B key or hit ripple over here and grab, say, this frame. Say it sounds a little bit like this. Listen to this. Say we cut off a little too much.
Calls from some of my investors.
See that little cut there? I could just grab this with my ripple edit, drag it to the left, like 2 frames, let go. That did a ripple edit and added 2 frames to this endpoint.
From some of my investors.
And that sounds good.
From some of my investors, some of my other entrepreneur friends.
That sounds pretty seamless. Here's one other example I want to bring up. As far as cleaning up, when the words are kind of rolled, when there's like an that is rolled into what he's saying. Listen to this here.
There's been a lot of
see that is kind of rolled into what he's saying here, into his of here. So I'm going to get here to the and I'm going to try to cut that out. I'm going to do an in point, out point, and extract that. And now listen to the audio.
There's been a lot of sways.
See, and that's a little kind of not so smooth. It kind of has a little bit of a jolt right there. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to land on this edit, hit arrow up to land on it, and I'm going to do a Control-Shift-D, which will add a crossfade between these 2 clips here. But I'm going to turn this down to just like a 2-frame crossfade here. Let's try a 2-frame crossfade there and play through it and see if this sounds a little bit smoother.
A lot of sways, and
that sounds better. That just tends to, that little crossfade, 2-frame crossfade, tends to smooth that out a little bit more. And now that sounds pretty clean.
And with them being the #1 marketable.
One more example here, and I'm going to clean up this little part where he says to answer your question.
To answer your question, I definitely would.
Okay, so I'm going to try to cut off this little section here at the beginning.
To answer your question,
when he just says to answer your question, so I just get the I. Right about there where he finishes question, and this word is kind of blended together, so this is going to be a tough one to clean up. I'm going to hit Q. let's play through that.
I definitely would.
Oh, actually, that turned out pretty good. I got it right on the eye. But if you really need to smooth that out, we can get right on the edit there. Hit arrow up to land on the edit. Arrow down will land on the edit to the right. Arrow up will land on the edit to the left. So I'm going to hit Control Shift D or Command Shift D on a Mac and add a cross dissolve. I'm going to make this 2 frames. Let's play through it and see if that sounds good.
I definitely would.
And that sounds decent.
If Walmart stock goes out through the roof, I'll definitely be sticking with it.
Cool. And we've got this down to under a minute and a half. Cutting out all the ums and ahs, we've got a nice little chunk here that has basically the story that he's telling. And now we can start editing B-roll on this. Some of the things we have at the beginning here, let's see,
I began investing in...
We have him talking, but I want a little pause where it shows some video first and then it has him talking. So I'm going to go in about maybe like, let's do like 2 seconds of B-roll and then he's going to start talking. So let's go to 2 seconds here. And the way I'm going to do that is I'm going to hit 2 decimal. The 2 is for 2 seconds and the decimal is a placeholder for the frames. Every time you add that, that would be 2 minutes, 0 and 0 seconds and 0 frames for each period there. But I'm just going to do 1 period, which is 2 seconds, 0 frames. Hit enter, and that's all on the numpad, by the way. I hit the number on the numpad. You don't hit it on the top of the keyboard. That's all numpad entry. Will send you to different locations on the timeline or on a clip when you're in the source monitor. I'm going to hit A for all tracks forward. I'm going to grab this and just drag it to my playhead, lock it to my playhead. I'm on snap right now, so it snapped it right to the playhead, and I'm going to start adding B-roll here. So B-roll is usually going to go on the section above all what's considered all your A-roll. This is your A-roll down here, and your B-roll is the footage that accompanies it on top. Your A-roll is basically your narrative. A-roll and B-roll really comes from when you shoot 2 cameras and you have the main camera footage on your A-roll and the B camera footage on the B-roll. This is all one camera, but we shot 2 different sections here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to change my source patching to this top video line here, right here. I'm going to activate that as well. Source patching is when you tell whatever you have in the source monitor to deliver it to the timeline where it's going to deliver it in the timeline. It's called source patching. It's going to source patch to this track right there. And I'm going to send my audio right here. But I know this audio, there's no audio on this B-roll, so I'm actually going to lock this. If you have B-roll audio, it's always nice to kind of add it and kind of bring it kind of quiet underneath the video, but we don't have audio on this B-roll. So I'm going to go to my B-roll folder, Alt or Option, double click on it, open it up. We're going to go to our thumbnails here and look at the thumbnails. And I know I'm going to hold my mouse over this and hit tilde. I know there's one shot that I've got. They've shot a bunch of B-roll here, and I know there's one shot that's kind of a pan of the monitor, and there it is right there. I look through the B-roll. Here it is right here. I'm going to double click on this, and right here, let me go back just a little bit, hit J to rewind a little bit. In point, play, and it does this little pan right there. At least it's on this computer, and stop and out point. So I've got an in point and out point. I've locked my audio down here. I'm going to source patch to my audio to this track right here, because there is an audio track here, but there's no sound on it. They didn't record sound with it. So now I just want to deliver the video. I've got this locked, so it will not send down audio. It's just going to send video right here. So now I'm going to go to my timeline here and hit period, and it drops my video up here. And look how much video it covers. And I'm going to talk about something called 3-point editing now. So we've got this footage. Well, first of all, let's do this. I'm going to hit Control D and fade in my video. So it fades in.
I began investing in Walmart when I got a brief holdup.
And I'm going to stretch that out just a little bit right there.
Got a brief holdup with the 401k plans being transferred over to a...
Okay, and I have to have another video clip that extends from here to here. I want that to come back to him at this point here on this edit right there. So this is where what I call 3-point editing comes in handy. I'm going to get to the beginning of my clip right here. I'm on my timeline. I'm going to hit I and put an endpoint on my timeline. I'm going to arrow down to why I want it to cut back. I want it to cut back on this video right here. Out point. This is 2 points. 1, 2, and now I'm going to find a clip here that I can cut away to. And here's a nice little cutaway here on his face. I'm going to double click on this and see if I can find I like kind of that typing motion right there. So I'm going to play. Right before he looks down, we'll see on his face for about a second, and then he'll look down, start typing, and look back up. I'm going to type in point, but I'm not going to leave an out, or I'm not going to do an out point. So by the way, if you already have an in point and out point on this, you will want to clear this because you only want 3 points. You want 1, 2, and then 3 up here. So I'm going to get rid of my out point. To clear all out points, on a PC it is Control Shift X. On a Mac it is Option X. So I'm just going to have this with 1 point. In point, we've got 1, 2, 3. So what this will do, it will take the end point of this clip and line it up with the end point of this clip of this on your timeline, and it will extend that clip until it hits this out point, and then it will cut it off. So that's called 3-point editing. I'm going to hit period to drop it in, and look at that, it filled it in right there, and now it cuts out at the right moment. So let's take a look at our video here. In my timeline, Shift 3 to go to my timeline. I need to go back further here, so I'm just going to pull back
when
here.
I got a brief holdup with the 401k plans being transferred over to a stock ends that I couldn't do anything with. So what I did is I just kept it where it was at.
And that worked really well there. Obviously there's a mismatch between the color there, but we can do color correction later. But this is the method for putting the B-roll in. Very helpful to put in point, out point, and cut away from things and cut back in. As we play through this though, I also have down here some have some stills that we pulled off of stock web pages and things to show you. Talks about Volkswagen. There's some Volkswagen stuff off of that we can use. Walmart. Another good thing that the photographer should have done is videotape some of the screens that he was using and that he was doing when he was looking at stocks online. And here's the Walmart stocks on NASDAQ. So I've got some bitmaps that have been pulled from a screen, and to kind of show you how to do that. On a PC and a Mac, it's a little bit different on each one. You can use the software called Grab on a Mac, and you can just open that up and you can do a selection or a window, and it will actually record that screen as a still image that you can use in Premiere. On a PC, this is probably one of the better. You do have another app as well. I like using the print screen because it prints the entire resolution of the screen. Let's go to nasdaq.com. and say you find an image that you want. Say if we want this image here, I'm going to zoom up on this and make it Control plus a couple times to zoom it up, and I'm going to take a picture of this image right here. I'm going to hit print screen. There's a key on your keyboard for Windows that is print screen. On the Mac it's probably yes to use grab. You can find it in your applications. So I'm going to hit print screen, hit the button. I'm going to open up Photoshop, and in Photoshop it will recognize the print screen that I just did. I'm going to hit a new file here. This is 1920 by 1080 to match the clip that I just copied. Brings open a blank page here, and Control V and paste, and there is my image. And now I just do File, Save As. I'd recommend saving as a bitmap because the bitmaps are going to be less compression than a JPEG, and find a location and save it. I've already done this, so I've got a couple pages here that we're going to be using. So right here when he starts talking about
where it was at in its IRA form. And I got a few calls from some of my investors, some of my other entrepreneur friends.
But right through here, though, before I start using the still images, I'm going to quickly edit some more B-roll in this area. And then later on, he starts talking about buying the stock, talks about Walmart, and talks about Volkswagen. I'm going to do the same process, 3-point editing, add some B-roll, come back and show you how to do some still animation here that's helpful for documentaries. I do want to show like a little instance here where I use 3-point editing, where I put 2 points in here and 1 point on my timeline. Works kind of very similar to what I did before. I've got this clip here that I want to use. When he starts typing, I'm going to put in point, play through this, and we'll say we want this clip to be about that long. I'll put out point, so I've got an in point and out point here. Go down to my timeline, Shift 3, and put an in point right here. Now what this is going to do, same thing, I kind of flip-flop. I put an in point, out point, so 1, 2, and 3 points. It's going to fill in this clip starting at this end point and go as long as it can until it hits the out point up here. Period. There we go. So I'm going to do a couple other of these edits, and then we'll come back and do some stills and a little bit of animation on them. Okay, I've added a couple other B-roll chunks here, and now I'm going to start adding these still images in here where he starts talking about purchasing stocks here. I'm going to go to our still images here. And he starts talking about Walmart first. So I'm going to open up this Walmart still here that was taken off the internet, and I'm going to clear my in and out points here. Control Shift X and clear those in points and out points, or Alt X, Option X on a Mac. And I'm going to put an in point up here, and I'm going to do it 2 points on my timeline.
I actually got my notice statement last month, so I own now 102 stocks of Walmart at 61.22. What I'm waiting for is the Volkswagen.
And here he starts talking about Volkswagen. So I'm going to put my Walmart clip there. I'm going to put an endpoint here at the beginning, and I'm going to come up here to my Walmart. I don't need to do a third point up here because this is a still image and it's an internal clip. So it'll just put it in from the beginning and stick it into this space right there. Period, drops it in. Endpoint. Go back to my timeline, Shift 3. Endpoint at the beginning of this, he talks about Volkswagen.
What I'm waiting for is the Volkswagen stop to hit rock bottom, since they keep on having a bunch of recalls that are horrible.
And put out point here. Grab my Volkswagen clip and hit period. And I'm going to clear out the endpoint and out point. Control Shift X, period, drop that on. So right now I've got these two clips right here. I've got my Walmart clip.
I own now 102 stocks of Walmart at 61.22. What I'm waiting for is the Volkswagen stop to hit rock bottom, since they keep on having.
Okay, and here it goes to the Volkswagen. So the Walmart and the Volkswagen. So right now I'm going to, and I want to do a little bit of an animation on this to make it look a little bit more interesting than just sitting on this web page like that. We're going to kind of, let's have this start out on close on the Walmart and zoom out to it. So I'm going to go to the beginning. I'm going to select this clip, go to the beginning of this clip here. Select this clip, go to Effect Controls, and these Effect Controls are for the selected clip in my timeline. I'm going to go to my Motion tab, and I'm going to move a little bit into the middle of the clip here and add a couple keyframes on position and scale. Move it a little ways away, add some ending keyframes on position and scale. Go to my beginning keyframes and tell it where I want it to start. I'm going to zoom up on this and move it over so we see that Walmart stock right there. Right there. So those are my beginning keyframes, and then my ending keyframes are where I left them.
So I own now 102 stocks of Walmart at 60.
That's a way fast zoom. So what I'm going to do, first of all, I'm going to fade into this Walmart. It looks better into a still image. I'm going to grab this, move it back a little bit, select this clip. Actually, I'm going to select all these clips here and do a Control D and do a dissolve on all the edit points. There, there, and there. But now I'm going to make this fade in before the cut happens. So I'm going to pull that back, pull my crossfade back, cross dissolve back, so it finishes the dissolve before it reaches this edit.
$1, it was a no-brainer. I actually got my.
There we go. I'm going to select this clip, and I'm going to grab these points here and pull it back to the beginning of the dissolve. So now watch this from before the dissolve.
$1, it was a no-brainer. I actually got my notice statement last month. So I own now 102 stocks of Walmart at 61.22.
Okay, and that looks pretty good, but it ends kind of abruptly there on these two keyframes. So what I can do is right-click on these two keyframes, temporal interpolation, and tell it to ease into those keyframes there. And now it will kind of gradually hit these things instead of coming to a sudden stop.
102 stocks of Walmart at 61.22.
And that looks good. That looks really good. So now I'm going to do the same to the Volkswagen, but we're going to zoom up to the Volkswagen now. Kind of the opposite. So I'm going to select this clip, and I kind of move it in past these dissolves just so I can kind of see what I'm doing, because if it's like faint, it's kind of, when it's dissolving, it's hard to tell what you're doing. So I'm going to do position, scale, move this a little ways, move it right there, and do your ending frames. And now on my ending frames instead of my beginning ones is where this is going to zoom up. So I'm going to zoom it up, move this over, change my position and my zoom right there. But now I've got these points, so now it goes from here,
the Volkswagen stop to hit rock
to there. That's kind of extreme, so I'm going to back off the scale a little bit, move that over so it doesn't show the image behind it. Right there. And I'm going to grab these two keyframes, pull them to the beginning, grab these two keyframes, pull them to the end. Actually, I need to move my cross dissolve so it doesn't fade out. Watch right here, I've got it fading out, then you see a jump cut.
They keep on having a bunch of.
See that jump cut, so I'm going to grab this, drag it over so it fades back into there. Now I can grab these two keyframes and drag it to the end of the dissolve.
122. What I'm waiting for is the Volkswagen stop to hit rock bottom, since they keep on having a bunch of recalls that are horrible for the industry.
And that cuts to his close up there.
Their stocks went from 250 all the way down to 100, but if it goes down to 50, 40, that's when I'm going to really probably sell all Walmart.
Okay, and here, one other little thing I'm going to show here is the morph cut. The morph cut is created for bridging interviews together, and sometimes it works pretty well, sometimes it doesn't. But let's say I want to stay on his close-up for a little bit longer here, but we have this jump cut right there.
We sell all Walmart.
Right there, it's got that jump cut. So I'm going to go under my effects here, and I'm going to go to my video effect or video transitions, and I'm just going to tell it to search for morph. The morph cut right here under dissolves, I can drag and drop this onto an edit and let go. And this is going to start analyzing here. As I move my mouse over this, you'll see it final analyze. When this analyze button pops up, it's done the auto analyzing, and you'll see an image actually pop up here as well. And this will sometimes take like about 30-40 seconds to do depending on the computer that you're on, so I'm going to let that, there it goes, it just popped up right there. And I guess I was wrong about the image showing up here, but this did finish the morph cut. And as I play through this,
all Walmart
and it also helps. I'm going to grab this and just shrink this a little bit and see how that does. It's reanalyzing here. Once it's through analyzing, this button will pop up in the effects control here. There we go, it's done. And I'm going to actually render that as well. So it should show up red on most times. On most computers it'll show up as red. I'm going to just hit enter, the big enter key, and it will render any red points. That's done rendering and it's turned green. Let's take a look at it and see how that looks.
We sell all Walmart.
And actually that looks really good. It looks like his eyeballs kind of go back and forth for a second there, but it morphs these two together to make it look like there's not a cut
Sell
there.
all Walmart at whatever it makes or doesn't make, and then go back over.
And I'm going to try that even one more time. I'm going to put one more morph cut here and then cut to a little bit more B-roll. Shrink that down to about the same size, right about there. Let it analyze till this analyze button pops up as not grayed out, and then I'm going to render it and play through it and see how it looks. Okay, it's done. I'm going to hit enter to render, play through it,
and then go back over.
And that one didn't look as good, but it is kind of hidden. It looks a little weird. Watch this.
Or doesn't make, and then go back over to.
It's okay. It's okay, but I'm actually going to cut out of that. That one I don't like as much. I'm going to cut out of this and go back to B-roll for the rest of this section. And then I'm going to come back, I'm going to add B-roll to the rest of this, and then we're going to come back and take a look at the next section where I'm going to show you quickly how to just do some audio adjustments here. We're going to end up adding some music. We're going to do some color correction and other things, which I have other tutorials on, and kind of show you the whole thing all pulled together. Okay, this final little section here that I'm going to show is doing the audio mix on here. As I'm going to play through this, we're going to watch our audio mix. You're going to have to do some adjustment and some mixing for the audio levels so they stay consistent around negative 12 here if I'm mixing for negative 12. So I'm going to go to the beginning of my clip here.
I began investing in Walmart when I got a brief holdup with the 401k plans being transferred.
And all my audio seems to be about maybe like 4 decibels too quiet. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all this audio here. There will be some that'll be a little too loud, but I'm going to bring them all up about by 4 decibels. I'm going to right click on all these, do audio gain, and increase this adjust gain by 4 decibels. It'll boost it up. Now I'll be able to turn these down a little bit. I've got some room to play with here. Like this first clip is probably going to be too loud now. Watch the levels here.
I began investing in...
See, and that's around negative 9. I'm going to grab that and drag it down maybe about like negative 3 decibels now.
I began investing in Walmart.
Now it's at negative 12. Let's see how it transitions to the next clip.
When I got a brief holdup with the 401k plans being transferred over to a stock ends that I couldn't.
And everything's right around negative 12. It's sounding really good so far. But right here it looks like it gets a little bit louder. I can see the waveforms get boosted there.
Do anything with. So what I did is I just...
See, and that hits up around like negative 9, negative 6. So I'm going to hold down Control or Command on a Mac and click, and add keyframes down here. If you're not seeing keyframes, do Shift. If it looks like this, do Shift plus. It'll bring up your track height, and you'll be able to add keyframes. And I'm going to go down here to where the audio turns back down and do click. These outer points act as a pivot point, and these inner ones here, you can just grab in between right here and drag upwards or downwards. In this instance, I'm dragging downwards about 3 decibels, and it's going to gradually turn down, be quiet, and then gradually turn up.
With. So what I did is I just kept it where it was at in its IRA form, and I got a few calls from some of my investors, some of my other entrepreneur friends.
And that sounds pretty good. And this is what you're going to do all the way through, adding some keyframes where necessary, turning some just individual clips up and down. And let's show one other section here.
Friends, and a lot of people are looking at the Walmart stock. Being that it's only at $61, a lot of the top industry players are 100, 150.
See, like right here, it kind of goes a little quieter. So what I could do is add a point here, point there, and turn this section up a little bit right there, so it turns up a little bit.
Are 100, 150.
That's a little too much right about there.
150. There's been a lot of sways.
And this one could turn down a little bit.
There's been a lot of sways, and with them being the #1 marketable grocery store and or chain store, being at $61, it was a no-brainer.
So like here it kind of trails off a little bit, so toward the end of this I'm going to grab that and turn it up.
$1, it was a no-brainer. I actually got my...
And that sounds a lot better. There's one more little example here where it gets suddenly kind of quiet as it trails off, so I'm going to hit some keyframes here and crank that way up toward the end of the clip here.
Then go back over to Volkswagen. I definitely would, if Walmart stock goes out through...
That one's too loud, turn that down. That one's too loud, turn that one down.
Through the roof, I'll definitely be sticking with it. I think Walmart will be a wonderful stock to sit on.
And the same toward the end here. You'll notice it's very loud at the beginning, then kind of trails off at the end, so I'm going to turn this all kind of down.
Keeping that for 20 years, yeah. I could probably sit on that one for about 50, and hopefully...
And then the audio kind of gets quieter, so I'm going to gradually turn this up here.
When I'm 50, it's going to be worth a lot more than $250.
And right here at the end is where it gets really quiet, so that we can crank this way up like that.
So yeah, I could definitely sit on Walmart for the rest of my life.
There we go. So after you get the audio cleaned up, then you can go through and do some color correction. I'm going to do that, and I'm going to add some music to this as well, kind of mix in some music to make it a little bit more interesting. So I'm going to download some music off of Incompetech's website, and I'm going to add that, and I'm going to do some color grading here. One quick example of color grading here, like this color, this is looking kind of orangish or reddish to me, so I'm going to go to my color layout, and I'm going to use my lumetri panel. I'm going to look at my scopes here. My scope shows the bigger push in the red, so I'm going to go to basic correction and tone down the red a little bit and bring up the blue a little bit right there on my temperature sliders. Already that's looking a lot better. I'm going to grab my saturation, tone my saturation down just a teeny bit, and now I'm going to go to my curves and add a bit of curve to this to make it a little more contrasty, kind of cool looking. There we go, a little more contrasty, and maybe a little vignette to finish it off. There's before, there's after, that vignette, nice subtle vignette. So I'm going to actually grab this. Let's go to the color one as well here, and look, this is kind of has a push in the blue because they're in this little computer room. I'm going to take the blue, kind of tone that down a little bit. Take the green up a little bit. There we go. Maybe that looks a little too green. Maybe about right there. Bring up my exposure a teeny bit and add some contrast. There we go. Now I can actually go back to editing here. Since this is basically two setups here, with one in the computer room and one interview, I'm just going to go to the effects controls of my computer room, copy my lumetri color panel, select all the clips. I'm going to hold down Shift and select all the clips that I want to add that filter to, and I'm going to hit Control V, and it pastes that on there, and I've added that color grade to the rest of these clips here. Now I got to do it to my interviews. I'm going to grab this color grade here, copy, Control C, my lumetri panel, select everything on my interview except for this one. Hold down Shift and deselect it. So I'm going to paste it onto all these other interviews. So watch this as I do Control V. It just pasted that color grade to everything else, and I am pretty much done with the color correction there. Kind of a quick little color correction there. Couple other things might want to do here is add a lower third to where this person here, to where he first shows up. I want to add a lower third to show who he is. Okay, so the last section here, I'm going to just pop some music in here. I'm going to go under my, I've grabbed one off of Incompetech.com here. Give credit to Kevin MacLeod for the use of this music here. And I've got some music. Kind of upbeat stuff. I'm just grabbing some quick stuff here. I'm not sure if this is going to work, but I'm going to use it anyway. I'm going to drag this whole audio down here. I'm going to actually source patch it to the bottom here, which I already have that track assigned. Hit period. It's just going to drop that whole clip down there. And it's too long for this. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to have it start out. And then he starts talking, so I'm going to mix this down a little bit, turn this down when he starts talking, have it turned down by the time he starts talking. Let's see how this sounds.
I began investing.
A little quieter.
I began investing in Walmart.
We'll turn that down a little bit more.
I began investing in Walmart when I got a brief holdup with the 401k plans being transferred over to a stock ends that I couldn't.
Okay, and that works pretty well, but I'm going to take a little trick here to make this kind of have a hard out instead of a fade out here, is I'm going to find a section here that I'm going to cut out in the middle. I'm going to use my razor blade and cut out a section like maybe right there. And then I'm going to grab this whole section right there and just delete it. Grab the end of this and drag it over so it kind of finishes where he finishes speaking.
Out of time. So I think that keeping that for 20 years, yeah, I could probably 50 when I'm 50. It's going to be worth a lot more than $250. So yeah, I could definitely sit on Walmart for the rest of
And now we're going to turn this back up at the end here.
my life.
And actually that just kind of fades out, so that's not a sudden stop anyway. But we'll let that fade out toward the end there. I'm going to drag this, back time this, and find a section here where he's talking, if I can kind of hide that little transition right there, maybe right about there where it's in the middle of it, him talking. I'm going to land on that, and I'm going to do Control-Shift-D and do a dissolve on it, a crossfade on it. Now let's play through that and see if we notice this.
$1, it was a no-brainer. I actually got my notice statement last
And that is pretty noticeable. I can either stretch this out or hit N and kind of do a roll edit to different parts of his speech.
month. So I own now 102 stocks of Walmart at 61.
And actually that one it hid pretty well, so it's just experimenting, moving this around, but I took a big section out of the music, so I've got the good beginning and an ending of it, and took out the section in the middle so it kind of blends together. And that's really it for the single interview editing. Some good suggestions. Maybe put a lower third on here or something like that as well. On the part 2 of this episode, I'm going to be showing how to do multiple interviews and getting them all pulled together in an efficient manner to make it so it makes sense and tells a story that you want it to tell. So for the end here, I'm just going to let this play, and I'll see you on the next episode.
I began investing in Walmart when I got a brief holdup with the 401k plans being transferred over to a stock ends that I couldn't do anything with. So what I did is I just kept it where it was at in its IRA form, and I got a few calls from some of my investors, some of my other entrepreneur friends, and a lot of people were looking at the Walmart stock. Being that it's only at $61, a lot of the top industry players are 100, 150. There's been a lot of sways, and with them being the #1 marketable grocery store and or chain store, being at $61, it was a no-brainer. I actually got my notice statement last month, so I own now 102 stocks of Walmart at $61.22. What I'm waiting for is the Volkswagen stock to hit rock bottom, since they keep on having a bunch of recalls that are horrible for the industry. Their stocks went from 250 all the way down to 100, but if it goes down to 50, 40, that's when I'm going to really probably sell all Walmart at whatever it makes or doesn't make, and then go back over to Volkswagen. I definitely would, if Walmart stock goes out through the roof, I'll definitely be sticking with it. I think Walmart will be a wonderful stock to sit on for a substantial amount of time. So I think that keeping that for 20 years, yeah, I could probably sit on that one for about 50, and hopefully when I'm 50, it's going to be worth a lot more than $250. So yeah, I could definitely sit on Walmart for the rest of my life.